Our next lecture, I call it Mongol Hegemony. Hegemony is a fancy word for dominance. We're going to break this lecture into two parts. This is lecture 19, and then we'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and finish it in lecture 20. Historians' views of the Mongols have undergone dramatic shifts over the past few generations. That is, since the field of world history has emerged. The old view of the Mongols were a rapacious beast. Mongols raped and pillaged their way across Eurasia. The primary Mongol tactics were terror. Sophisticated cities are sacked and destroyed, libraries burnt. Skulls and dismembered bodies seem to be the Mongol calling card. This was the version of the Mongols that I grew up with. I learned a new view, however, in graduate school. And this view seems to have prevailed. You can see it more and more. The new view of the Mongols, Mongol conquest forced civilizations to get to know one another. Again, extending the web, bringing civilizations closer into closer contact. Mongol conquest created a vast circuit of trade throughout Eurasia. So the Mongols sort of revived the old Silk Road and extended. The Mongol yam, Y-A-M, this is simply the transliteration of a Mongol word that denotes a system of sophisticated horse trails. The Mongol homelands are in the steppes of Central Asia, that narrow belt of pasture upon which the nomadic Mongols sustain their livestock. And then from the steppe lands south into China, India, Persia, Mesopotamia, or a series of trails, well-maintained, with stations, with fresh water, fresh food, place to sleep, new tack. This yam provided safe passage across Eurasia for missionaries, merchants, travelers, diplomats, adventurers. So this has the effect of linking the old world together. The Mongols inadvertently carried the flea that would spread the bubonic plague in the 14th century, and we'll talk about that in more detail. The Mongol interlude is an important episode in world history. The Mongol impact had durable consequences. Some key terms here. There are two Mongols I want you to know by name. Genghis Khan, you may have heard of. He's the founder of the Mongol Empire. What Genghis Khan did was to sort of gather these nomadic tribes together, organize them, and build a great Mongol empire from them. He probably built the most formidable military force yet seen in its mobility and its capacity to overwhelm sedentary civilizations. And then the second Mongol I want you to know by name is Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan. He is the Mongol ruler over the Yuan dynasty in China. So the Mongol dynasty in China begins with Kublai Khan, and it's called the Yuan dynasty, Y-U-A-N. Of course, these are a nomadic people. They're forever on the move in search of fresh water, fresh pasture. The steppe lands I mentioned as a thin belt of pasture, extending across Eurasia all the way from Manchuria in the east to Hungary in the west. And then the yam, again, a sophisticated horse trail system that connects the Mongols in their homeland in the steppe to the great sedentary civilizations of China, India, Persia, Mesopotamia. So the Mongol conquest overrun these great old civilizations, civilizations that are much greater populated, much more sophisticated. The Mongols overrun them in the 13th, 14th centuries. This includes China, Persia, northern India, Southeast Asia, Ukraine, large portions of Russia, portions of Eastern Europe were successfully invaded and then abandoned. And then, of course, the Mongols failed in their attempt to conquer both Malaysia and Japan. Mongol methods, well, they often use local traditions. An example would be the adoption of Confucianism in China, the adoption of Islam in Persia. They use foreigners to help them in their role. Christians, Nestorian Christians, Persians, on and on. Probably the most well-known of these foreigners who helped in the Mongol rule is Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant of the 13th century. Polo, of course, claimed to have lived with the Mongols for, 17 years or so. He claimed to have worked directly for Kublai Khan and to have had a close relationship with the great Khan. Polo's book, of course, has been available now for 7 centuries. And many books have been written about Polo's description of the world. That's his title. One book in particular I remember made the argument that perhaps Polo never went to China, that maybe he had an active imagination and made some of this stuff up. And the evidence used here was the things that Polo does not mention in his book. Foot binding, for instance, Chinese script, chopsticks, cormorant fishing, the Great Wall of China. These are conspicuous cultural features of the Chinese landscape. And yet Polo never discusses it. This leads some people to believe that he may not have seen all that he claims to have seen. So it's a cosmopolitan mix, the Mongols. They're very tolerant of all religions. The Mongol attitude towards religion seems to be, let's gather all the gods, perhaps one of them is genuine. So they're quite tolerant of other people's faith and their practices. Mongols issue a passport to people who travel on the Yam. This provides them with authority and protection. Mongol stations are established all along the Yam, like I said, with food, fresh water, tackle, place to rest, hay for the horses. And of course, the Mongol Yam is patrolled by mounted riders. Mongol horsemen could move across Eurasia at a greater speed than ever before in human history, probably faster than all the way up into the 19th century with the invention of steam and the internal combustion engine. And of course, if you committed a crime on the Mongol circuit, on the Mongol Yam, then the rest of your short life was going to probably be pretty miserable. Only Mongols practice violence in their domain. Others would be severely punished. So this is an introduction to the Mongols. And in part 2, we're going to look more at their military prowess. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the foreign visitors. We'll look at some of the consequences and then reasons for the decline of the Mongol Empire. So we'll be back for part 2 in just a moment. Thank you.